Now that Super Mario Bros. Wonder has arrived and proven to be utterly charming, it's gotten me thinking. So many have said that it's the best new 2D Mario since Super Mario World. Some have even labeled it as the best. But is that really the case? Could it even be the best Mario platformer ever? Well, there's only one way to find out. By ranking every single Mario platformer, whether it's 2D or 3D. Now, there really isn't a bad Mario platformer. Each one has something to offer, but for the sake of this video, I asked the team to personally rank where they'd put the 24 games I've compiled. Obviously, there are way more Mario platformers out there, especially with remakes and variations. However, deciding where to place Super Mario Bros. 2 for the NES, and Super Mario Bros. 2 for the All-Stars pack, and Super Mario Bros. 2 for the Mario Advance line gets a bit too into the weeds. So, for the sake of ease, this is all based on the original version and taking into consideration any add-ons that came later, such as New Super Luigi U and Bowser's Fury. What Mario platformer came on top for us? Well, let's take a look. Did you know that there was a Super Mario Bros. Game & Watch? No, not the one that came out for his 35th anniversary, I mean the one that came out all the way back in 1988. And for a Game & Watch title, it mostly keeps Mario's gameplay intact. He must jump his way through several levels to reach Peach at the end. The difference is that there's no enemies to face. Instead, Mario has to dodge obstacles, navigate a maze, and find power-ups for a better score. It's as basic as they come, but it did allow Mario to be played on the go, until Mario Land came out the following year, in Japan anyway. Mario wouldn't have gotten his platforming start without the original Donkey Kong in arcades. It's a bona fide classic, but like many arcade games, your mileage may vary. Some enjoy the cycle of pushing for more points and mastering the 4 levels, others will get tired of the loop and yearn for something different after only a short time. It's stiff by today's standards, and certainly basic, though it's hard to deny the importance of this gaming landmark. Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, or Super Mario Bros. 2 in Japan, took years to come to the West thanks to its sheer difficulty. The developers at Nintendo thought it was simply too hard for kids in the West, and it wouldn't be until its inclusion as part of the All-Stars collection on SNES that we even got a taste. Though even that was toned down compared to the NES original, which the West finally got to experience as part of the Wii Virtual Console. And after playing it, yeah, Nintendo was onto something here. It's brutal in its challenge and barely offers anything new to the player. It's more of a challenge pack, a way for those who mastered the original to test their skills. It did introduce the poison mushroom and Luigi's loose traction and high jumps, but unless you're an expert, it's not exactly a fun ride. For years, people in the industry insisted that Nintendo should take advantage of the mobile games market, and in 2016, the company relented, showcasing not only the unique Miitomo, but Super Mario Run, an auto-runner where the player controlled when and how long Mario and his friends would jump. It's a fun enough time, but personally speaking, it showcases the lack of depth most mobile games exhibit. It's fun enough to kill time with, unlock new characters, and so forth, but I wasn't drawn back to the game, and that was perhaps the case for many, as despite Nintendo offering a flat $10, most opted not to upgrade beyond the free demo. Super Mario Land is like a peek at what Mario could have been if not spearheaded by Shigeru Miyamoto as a completely new team took the reins. Produced by the creator of the Game Boy himself, Gunpei Yokoi, everything here is just a little different. Sarasa Land's levels are based on real-world locations. What seems like returning enemies turn out to be completely different, as I vividly remember being thrown off when a Koopa explodes rather than gets kicked in its shell. And there are even shooting sections both underwater and in the sky. Yet it's still a ton of fun. Not long by any means, as it can be beaten in 30 minutes, but it still manages to stick with you. Besides, at the very least we got Daisy out of it. New Super Mario Bros. 2 felt like the victim of timing. Released only a few months before the more standout New Super Mario Bros. U, nothing about it felt distinct outside of the coin gimmick. Coins were everywhere with an overall challenge of collecting 1 million, but I never felt compelled by it despite obviously pulling from Super Mario Bros. 3 in terms of inspiration. It's fine enough as a game, but there's no spark. Unless you try out the DLC, because that's where you get creative, fun, and challenging levels. It plays just fine, but it inadvertently showcases the limitations of the new Mario series. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is the sequel to Donkey Kong 94 that almost nobody realizes. The series quickly became obsessed with the mini Marios and a Lemmings-like experience, but the first game puts platforming first. It expands upon the many ideas of Donkey Kong on Game Boy and feels like a pretty solid follow-up. It just lacks the teeth of the original, as Donkey Kong is simply stealing toys, not Pauline. It does the job as a sequel, but it would have been way cooler to see how much the team could expand upon this baseline rather than switching focus to the minis. Perhaps the remake will give us a second chance. Super Mario Sunshine is perhaps the epitome of a love it or hate it game, and there is a lot to love. Flood really adds to Mario's moveset and can make for some incredible platforming. Seeing how all the worlds are connected is a treat, and there's a challenge here that many other 3D Marios don't offer. But it can also be incredibly janky. Mario without Flood feels limited, and collecting all the shines can be a chore. Most agree it's best not to go for completion, as it's more trouble than it's worth. Yet certain challenges are a blast, and it did introduce Bowser Jr., one of the most prevalent Mario characters ever. It's good, just not spectacular. When New Super Mario Bros. Was first revealed, it felt like a big deal. It was the first time 2D Mario had returned for a new game since Super Mario Land in 1992, a 14-year gap. So when it finally released, it was good. It rode the wave of nostalgia to become a massive hit, and I loved it at the time. But upon reflection, it's pretty basic, with level themes that became a trope in and of themselves. First grass, then desert, and so forth. The power-ups were fine as well, with the mini mushroom necessary to even unlock 2 of the worlds. There's significance in its release, and it has some fun boss ideas, but thankfully the new series would get better. The original Super Mario Bros. Is a pure classic. It popularized the idea of platformers in general, solidified Mario as Nintendo's mascot, introduced a new world of characters that people would grow to love over time, and the game itself is pretty fun too. While it's certainly been done better, it's difficult to overstate how much the original gets right immediately. There are plenty of levels to explore and secrets to find, many of which allow players to quickly get farther in the game and attempt the final world that much quicker. And there's even a hard mode to unlock for extra playtime. Many of us wouldn't be the gamers we are today without this game. I mean, it was my first. Super Mario Land 2 is just a great sequel. The sprites are bigger, there's more levels, and it feels generally closer to regular Mario games, even implementing ideas from Mario World. I loved playing this game over and over again simply because of all the themes and unique enemies. The Mario statue, the turtle, the giant house, the haunted pumpkin, the trees, space, all of them stick out in my mind while introducing a great new villain in Wario. He always felt like a great challenge as a kid, especially with how he got access to Mario's powers as well, making him feel decidedly different from Bowser. It's limited in many ways as it's still not huge, but there was no better portable Mario in the 90s. New Super Mario Bros. Wii is what gave the new series its identity: multiplayer. The game is fine on its own thanks to the plentiful new power-ups that are genuinely fun, but adding the chaos of friends into the mix makes it so much more. The ways in which you can work together and mess with each other are so numerous that I still look on this game fondly. The levels may still fall back on the standard mix, and the Koopalings may have taken over as bosses, which is great for this game, though it soon became old hat as time went on. But the problems seem less when playing with friends. Plus, the Unlockable World 9 does offer up a decent challenge. Just a great piece of fun in the right conditions. Hey, did you know Super Mario Bros. 2 was originally Doki Doki? Okay, yeah. Everyone knows that these days, but it's amazing how well this works as a Mario sequel despite that, establishing many facets of the characters that are still true to this day. Oftentimes when it came to sequels on the NES, they'd completely changed how they played. It happened with Zelda, Castlevania, and of course Mario. But Mario may work the best as it still feels familiar in its structure. Perhaps it has the benefit of hindsight since Shy Guys, Ninjas, Birdo, and so many other elements have become staples of the franchise. But even as a kid, they felt like Mario to me. Besides, the game is simply fun. Figuring out how to defeat enemies in certain situations could feel like puzzles thanks to the throwing mechanic, and there were thrilling moments that still stick out to me, like dodging Fly Guys on the ice. Different, but very fun. New Super Mario Bros. U is absolutely the best of the new series, as it combines many of Mario World's ideas with the multiplayer chaos of Wii. The overworld felt more open and vibrant, and even though it followed many of the same level and boss tropes, there would be moments that stood out as original. It was getting so close to becoming something beyond the sterile vision of Mario that many had. It's a shame there was only a single new power-up, but the game did feel like a refined version of Wii. The inclusion of New Super Luigi U with its greater challenge, focus on speed, and changed physics for Luigi only made the package that much more attractive. It's the best of the bunch and is still a lot of fun in its multiplayer mayhem, but it's obvious that Super Mario Bros. Wonder is absolutely what people have wanted the series to become for a long time. New Super Mario Bros. U was about as far as this vision of Mario could have gone. Super Mario 3D Land is simply a solid game. While it doesn't exactly stand out in any one area, it's just a consistently fun time with some fantastic uses of 3D. It felt like a push forward from what the new series had been doing despite the lack of new power-ups, but it was novel to combine a 3D Mario with the 2D elements that were often absent from his console adventures. Now Mario could be small, or consistently use the Fire Flower, or enjoy the return of the Tanuki suit. There's also a lot of levels to enjoy, making for a surprisingly lengthy adventure. It's a good time that served as the basis for an even better game. Donkey Kong for the Game Boy works because of how unassuming it is. If you play with no knowledge of what it actually is, it comes across as a basic port of the arcade game to the handheld. But once the 4 levels that make up that game are completed, suddenly Donkey Kong is back, kidnaps Pauline, and it becomes a massive adventure. And it's all held together by a shockingly nimble Mario who can do so much more than his other counterparts, at least until the 3D games started using them too. Every world offers new puzzles, and it stands out as one of the best games on the Game Boy. There was something magical about seeing Mario's transition into 3D. I never had a Nintendo 64 as a kid, but I'd see Super Mario 64 on display in mall kiosks all the time. Just playing that little taste and feeling how smooth Mario was in 3D was enough to sell you on the idea. It was just as fun as I thought it'd be when I finally played the game later on, and while Mario 64 has certainly aged over the years, it still stands out as a hallmark of the genre. There are so many fun ideas on display with a new structure that feels decidedly Mario. He can just do so much more than before, and learning those tricks, mastering them, feels great. That said, the last few levels in the game can be a hassle, and the camera struggles at points. Still, it's incredible how well it's held up. Super Mario 3D World shows just how much more fun a game can be with friends. While 3D Land was a good time, 3D World took that concept and ran with it. Bigger levels, more varied level design, a better variety of bosses, and a fantastic finale. There's just something comforting seeing Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Peach return to their roles from Super Mario Bros. 2, abilities and all, and recontextualize within modern Mario. It's fun seeing each of them use the new power-ups, and Cat Mario has become every bit as iconic as Tanuki Mario. And where it really stands out are the surprises. Captain Toad turns out to be an enjoyable puzzle diversion, adding Rosalina as a playable character for the first time is an awesome reward for beating the game, and some of the level themes are just superb. And that's without mentioning the new Bowser's Fury mode added to the Switch release, which shows this style of Mario in a more open world. It's an unassuming release that stands among the best. With Super Mario Bros. Wonder being such a recent release, it's difficult to engage exactly how we all feel about it. Oftentimes we need to sit on a game for some time to really hone in on what makes it great compared to other games and whether its weaknesses really take that much away. But there's no doubt that Wonder is one of the best Mario platformers of all time. The Wonder effects and badges are fantastic ideas, both changing how the player engages with each individual level. With the Wonders, it becomes fun to see just what will happen next, or how the game will build upon previous ideas. The badges provide a chance to change how you might play through a level, either making it easier or more challenging. But the game isn't without faults, as it tends to be a rather easy ride until the very last level, and the bosses are pretty lackluster. Still, few Mario games boast the sheer amount of charm Wonder exudes, and the character lineup can't be beaten. Future Mario games should absolutely take lessons from this new classic. The creativity on display in Super Mario Odyssey is without a doubt its greatest strength. So many unique worlds with fun challenges augmented by Mario's capture gimmick, allowing him to possess animals and objects. It's a delight to see what new possibilities will be shown next, and the bosses are pretty great across the board. Even the concept of outfitting Mario with different clothes was a novel idea. Besides, I can't think of another Mario game that made me tear up from the sheer joy of what was happening. While it was widely lauded at launch, re-evaluations have shown a few weaknesses, namely in the number of collectible moons in the game. With so many available with hardly any work necessary, it does cheapen the experience for some. But taken as a whole, Odyssey still comes across as one of Mario's best outings. There's a reason so many were hoping for an Odyssey 2 for the entirety of the Switch's lifespan. And who knows, it could still happen in the future. Super Mario Bros. 3 is my personal favorite game of all time. There was nothing quite like it for me as a kid, and I replayed it over and over again, committing every level to memory and chatting in the schoolyard over all of its secrets. Every world has something unique that it offers that still stands out to this day. From the angry sun to the boss bass to chain chomps to boos to the Koopalings, everything was fresh, expansive, and so much fun. I remember how epic the final world felt too, with the parade of Bowser's tanks and boats, and exploring a dark world rather than one filled with lava. So many power-ups, so many ideas, I love it. But I know that it's not everyone's favorite, as the levels tend to be on the short side, and the controls aren't as tight as a certain other 2D masterpiece. Still, what a leap forward that's as fun today as it ever was. While Super Mario Galaxy 2 could be labeled as more of the same, it instead shows just how many ideas Nintendo had for a Mario game set in space. While visiting each planet is more streamlined, it doesn't take away from the variety of the levels themselves. In many ways, it feels like the beginning of the merger of 2D and 3D Mario concepts, but it all works. The greater challenge, the inclusion of Yoshi, and the new bosses are all great. It's little wonder there's so much debate over which Galaxy game is superior. There really isn't a wrong answer, as both are among Mario's most fun platforming adventures. Speaking of, Super Mario Galaxy is brilliant from top to bottom. There's a sense of grandeur that Galaxy 2 doesn't quite capture, and I believe that lies at the heart of which games fans prefer. If you want your Mario games to have more story and seemingly higher stakes, the original Galaxy is the way to go. But if you want pure platforming action, Galaxy 2 is where you'll find it. That's not to say that the original Galaxy is lacking in that department. The sheer number of ways the Wii Remote is used makes it feel wholly unique and a pleasure to revisit. Plus, the introduction of Rosalina and her backstory via the children's book is genuinely sweet. Both Galaxy games are good, but I love it when Mario feels more ambitious. Perhaps this is unsurprising. After all, people have heaped praise on Super Mario World for decades now. But it's all deserved. So many ideas have been pulled from this game to inform the future. From the interactable map to the bonus levels to many of the enemies, Mario World is refined to a purity that few games can match. There may not be many power-ups, but the way they're all used in conjunction with Mario's expanded moveset can be incredibly fun. Add in Yoshi, one of the most beloved characters since Mario's inception, and you have one of the most replayable and fun games ever made. What else can really be said about it except that you need to try it if you never have before? And that's every single Mario platformer ranked. As I've said, there's not really a truly bad one in the bunch. It all comes down to taste. Our individual lists were quite different from one another, and this is merely a compilation of all of them. But even still, I think this list highlights the games that should be highlighted. Some might be lower than I'd like, naturally, but I can't disagree with the placements that much. Still, I'd love to know how you'd rank the 24 main platformers that Mario has starred in. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/gvgaming, or simply subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Every bit helps, and we couldn't be more appreciative. Thank you for watching, and be on the lookout for more fun videos in the future. Until next time, bye.